Star family, peace and blessings, big blessings to everybody. This video is going to be a tutorial video dealing with transits in Capricorn Prometheus astrology software. We're going to look at generating transits first. I'm Michael, this is oneskyastrology, and thank you for being here. Most of the information that I'm going to present today is going to be presented in a constellational astrology, like a 13 sign or a true sidereal framework, but this information should really help everybody regardless of which zodiac and I'm sure you prefer. So let's see, generating transits and progressions. All right, here we are with a standard kind of and you may notice some things about my wheel, for example, my screen, that are not standard, but let's just say this is Prometheus when you first open it, and usually it'll generate a transits chart. You can always just go to new session chart OK to generate the current transits if your Prometheus is set to, for some reason, not to do that automatically. Now, when it comes to progressions and transits, they're kind of bundled together. So there's a couple ways to do it. We'll start in the order like most obscure. Up here in the search tab, we have a transits and progressions section where we have a transits and progressions button. That's one way to access transits and progressions. Another way to be to open with a right click here in the session charts on the right, the natal chart that we want to look at, or the radix chart, and come down here to transits and progressions. We can see that Control T will also open transits and progressions. There's a hotkey, so we can hit Control T at any time, and it will open the transits dialog. And lastly, if there's a chart open, then there's going to be a transits button at the bottom right here. And any of those methods will open this dialog. So I can just hit Control T and same dialog. And even within this, if I just hit Control T because I know I want to run transits, I can still choose here on the left any radix or transit chart that I want to run transits against. So we have this transits and progressions dialog, and I just want to kind of break it into the right side and the left side, because this is a lot, and this is definitely a learning curve, especially all this over here. So just to take it point by point, the left side requires input each and every time you generate transits. Unless you just want to do the default stuff, which is a transit range from now until 1 year in the future. With the chart that's already selected, relocated to the default location that you've selected within Prometheus. If you want to run that transit report exactly, you don't have to change anything. But let's just say that this can't be beyond that, beyond defaults. This can't be programmed. While the right side can be programmed. It can be saved. Configurations on this side. Any combination of tick boxes and button config options, so we'll call these options and configurations. Any combination of these can be saved as a custom search. So that is pretty awesome. And savable searches and loadable searches is something we're really going to focus on as we develop our skills in understanding the options here. So let's get back. Let's just take a look at break this down on the left. We have a date range, the range of, we have a start and end time. For the transits report, it's pretty simple. You know, I can change this to be like just a couple months by going May to September 2024. The radix chart, yeah, let's just work with my transits and relocate them to my current location in space. Radix is Latin for root. It's where we get radish and radical. It just means the core, the center chart when you're doing a bi-wheel or a multi-wheel. And in some cases, transits is an expression, a dynamic expression of a multi-wheel. We're comparing one set of astrological data, the transiting planets, to another set of astrological data, the natal chart, which in this case will be referred to as the radix. It's just terminology, but I love the root. Love the word radix. So that aside, my friends, let's look at the right side. I think the left side should be pretty self-explanatory. I mean, needless to say, if you're in the same location as the location on the radix chart, there's no need to relocate the chart. If you have changed location, or your subject or client has changed location, then relocate the search to their current location. That's how that works. And that brings us to the right section. Very exciting, because here a couple things are folded into transits here. So progressions and arc directions are going to be available to us as well. And these are two timing methods that complement transits very well. So we have sections here. We have sections. We'll just to detail this. We have first of all, we have the radix chart points that we're going to run transits against. So we can set that up. That'll be all of the bodies, points, and planets that are applied transits to in this transits generation. And then below it, we have an arc direction section. Now, there's a couple ways to configure arc directions. You can do it around the sun or the angles, ascendant. I see vertex arc direction sometimes, but usually it's just rotating the whole chart about 1 degree a year, sort of hinging it on the sun's secondary progressed movement. And but instead of everything in the chart moving separately as it may, it takes the natal chart and keeps it cohesive and moves it with the sun. That would be solar arc directions. But I'm not here to explain solar arc directions. I'm here to say hi. I'm here to talk about the options and how to generate transits reports. So there's probably got to be some great videos about solar arc directions, what they are more precisely, and how to use them as a timing method. But I'm not here to detail that. And in the interest of time, I just want to say that this section allows us to generate arc directions with our transits. This section, the second section, allows us to generate progressions with our transits. And again, there's a couple ways to configure progressions, and I'm not here to talk about that. I will say it's all set up to do. The standard is solar arc directions, totally configured already, and secondary progressions, which are the most common form of progressions and probably what you're looking for if you're calculating progressions. You may mess around here in the spirit of scientific exploration and see you can change solar days to sidereal days, and you may be a sidereal astrologer who thinks that has got to be the right option, and you'd be wrong. So don't do that. Solar days are longer than sidereal days because Earth is rotating on its axis. It rotates on its axis so that the sun's the same position in the sky. That's a solar day. It takes 24 hours. And that's what we're talking about. A sidereal day is it's the rotation of the Earth until the stars are in the same place. and it's like 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. It's not a day. So we're going solar days on this one. Again, these are side notes, and I don't want to digress too far. I don't want to get too far off. What I want to say is that these sections have a logic, and we'll break down that logic. Here we have transits, and we have all the options and configurations for the transits. And this is really what, we're really doing. We want transiting to radix aspects. In almost every case, we're going to want transiting to radix aspects. Sometimes we'll only want transiting to transiting aspects. And sometimes we'll generate other configurations depending on our use case and needs. But for now, this tick box that use transits and transiting to radix aspects is how that's usually used, this dialogue. Progressions, optional, not on by default. Arc directions, optional, not on by default. So let's actually start at the bottom. What I want to do is just set up an example of like what you can do here. So I want to caveat this with this has a learning curve, and you'll have to experiment to become familiar by experience. So don't be intimidated. Just save some test configs and mess around till you get it dialed in for you. I want to start by explaining how the sections work. I want to explain the logic. We'll start with transits, and when we select to use transits, we have transiting sign ingress. That's going to tell us on a timeline when a planet ingresses to a sign. Now, this isn't fully incorporated in the version that I'm using. Not fully incorporated in the version of Prometheus that I'm running. 1.2. It's not fully integrated as the Zodiac. In the Zodiac 13, it tends to generate more. Even sign depending on what your default even sign sidereal zodiac is. So when it comes to transiting sign ingress, if I'm interested in the Zodiac 13 information, which I invariably am, I don't use that. If you're interested in even sign sidereal information or tropical, then use this. If that interests you, and it will work for you. And likewise, transiting to radix house ingress is not something that I use because I use a whole sign house system. So my 13 sign zodiac is my house system. Transiting stationary points will allow you to see when bodies station retrograde and direct. Transiting void of course moon will list the times that the moon is void of course. And again, this is an even sign. The even sign functionality, is very well integrated, but the 13 sign functionality, you may get varying results. It may not make sense with a 13 sign zodiac. I usually leave that off. Transiting to radix aspects. This is going to compare the transiting points that we configure here to the radix points configured here during the times configured here for the astrological config, the radix chart that we delineate. That makes sense? Okay, transiting to radix is going to run these points against these points. And it's going to do it based on these aspects that we configure. It's important to understand. So take a look at that. Make sure you're getting this. This transiting point, we'll get in here. We'll take a look at this in a few moments, and we'll definitely get really clear on what all this means. Transiting to transiting aspects is going to show us aspects between transiting points only. Transiting points only. So let's say Jupiter and Saturn are square next year, coming up this year, really. You would see that, and I find this helpful sometimes, transiting to transiting aspects, because sometimes you'll be looking at a person's aspects, you'll be looking at a person's rather transits, and you can see, oh, they're going to have a real Jupiter season. And Jupiter is going to be hitting nicely on a lot of their key points, and it looks like a lot of gain, a lot of wealth, a lot of goodness. Well, I think that you got to take into account the transiting transits, because Jupiter, if at that time Jupiter is going to be with transiting Saturn, then square, that's going to affect the nature of Jupiter. It's going to affect the Jupiter that is making those contacts. So it does become relevant. It very much does become relevant. And the last tick box we're setting up, the option we have is to show solar and lunar eclipses. So if that interests you, check that out. I am going to leave these 3 boxes ticked. And now when it comes to the aspects and configuration and the transiting point configurations, we have options, and now we have configurations to set up. So we've told it what we want to generate, but now we're going to get specific and really configure that. So for transiting points, we have the default 10 planets, no moon. If you create custom transiting point configs, you're going to want to not have a moon, and sometimes you just want to generate, if you generate every transit of Mercury, Venus, and Mars over a course of time, you will become inundated. Because they move too fast, they make too many aspects. You'll become inundated with all kinds of data that you have to sort through, and those transits, because they're fast, aren't very impactful. So it becomes a question of how relevant any of it is, mostly when I run transits, I have created a custom config that is just outer planets. So there's a couple of these that come with the default software. We have outer planets 5, 4, 2, and that's different sets of outer planets. Outer planets plus North Node plus Chiron. And I took that and copied it and edited it and made the outer planets from Jupiter to Eris. And so my transits, what I want to generate for this, I'm just using this as an example. You can do anything you want. You can extrapolate. But I'm going to generate transits from Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Eris, the North Node, the South Node, and Chiron. I think I could add to this. Sun, but if I add moon, things are going to go crazy, because it'll take a long time to generate, and then there will be way too much data. But you know what? I'm not going to experiment making this video. I'm just going to use this outer planets for transits that I created, and I've detailed how to create point configs and other configs in other YouTube videos that I've published, so you can check that out. For now, let's just select the transits we want. Transits 1 degree. Let's see. Major aspects only. Let's see. I use that for arc directions. Transits 1 degree. Okay. We have what we want. I just want to make sure that it doesn't have parallels and contraparallels selected. And these are just major. So let's just say, for the sake of this video, for the sake of experimentation, that for these transits I want to generate, I don't just want the major transits. I want general aspects. And I've created this file as general purpose aspects for transits. And it's all of the major aspects, most of the minor aspects, and quintiles and biquintiles. So we'll use that. We'll use general aspects for transits. Let's generate some progressions just to see what's going on. We'll do progress to radix aspects. And instead of 10 planets, let's say that's a lot of data. I don't really care about those progressions. Not so much. Let's say for progressions, I want to limit it to sun and moon. Well, here's another file that I've created, and I'm gonna use it. And in this instance, I think I just want I want to see everything that the progressed sun and moon are doing, down to semi-sextiles and quincunxes. So we'll use that. We're configured for secondary progressions, and we just want to see the sun and moon. This is going to allow us to save a lot of time and move through a lot of data. Now, when it comes to arc directions, I find arc directions, that is something that I want, I just want all the points. I want 11. I want 11 planets in the nodes. This is going to have, so this is for transits. This isn't for arc directions. It doesn't have the moon. I think I'm just going to throw in my default. I want just all the default points, because I want my radix chart points to use my default too. And one of the main reasons is this includes Eris. There are other reasons, but this includes all the points that I find relevant. So let's use them. Let's say for arc directions, we want to calculate all the points for all the points. Okay, that's going to give us a lot of arc directions, but that's okay. We'll come back to that. And if we have to trim it, that'll give us a good example on how to work with this. So at this point, what we see is that the logic of it is we have the options of what to use on the left side here of the right section. And we have the configurations for the aspects and the points that we want to use on the right side. For arc directions, I actually am going to use general aspects. Major aspects, because I actually don't want all that data for arc directions. For arc directions, I'm only interested in out to sextile. That's gonna save things. It's gonna save time. So here's my config. Okay, so we set all that up. We thought about that carefully, and like I said, it's a learning curve, but we don't have to do that every time. As soon as you think you have anything worth saving, boom, save it. Okay, save it. And we're going to save it as test for demo. Okay. Save it as test for demo. I'm sorry. I saved it as test for demo, but you can save it as anything that makes sense to you. Of course, because now we can if I cancel out of here, oh my gosh, I haven't lost anything. Now transit, load, test for demo, and all of those settings are back. So let's check it out. Now we're going to see, have we made any mistakes? And one of the mistakes we can make is to generate the more or less data than we actually want to see. So this is where we'll start to dial it in. We may come back to here, because you can save over. You can just resave. You can make adjustments and save it. I could change test for demo. I just did. I just saved it over the file it was before. So let's run the search, the moment of truth, right? We're here. We're doing from May 2004 to May 2005. All of these calculations, lot of arc directions, some progressions, full transits, Let's turn off transiting to transiting. No, let's leave it on. It'll make a good example. Let's just do like less time. We'll narrow it down to, we'll do May to November. All right, 6 months. So begin search. I do 6 months because this is a common transit. If I'm going to use this all the time, this can't take 20 minutes to generate. This has to generate. I have to see this like moving. I need to be able to generate this. I should be able to generate this on the fly if someone was in session and they said, well, let's look at that. What data is there about this issue? I should be able to just bam, bam, bam. And that's what this will allow you to do. You don't have time on the fly to sit there and talk about configs and options. You have to know this stuff. So that's the learning curve that I encourage you to embrace, to climb. But yeah, that's your pep talk. That's your pep talk. I'm not big on that. We are here, and that generated well. And now the first thing I want to do is just look down through this. Does it have the information that I want? Not more and not less. Because we really are dialing in. We're fine tuning. For 6 months, and that's a lot of arc directions up here. That's a good amount of data. That fits. We'll keep that. So we don't have to do that. Let's just say, okay, that we want to change some settings. Let's say we don't like it. Let's say it gives us too many arc directions, too much directed stuff. Let's see. It's actually not true. Like all of that, because it's major angles. That's all that's pretty relevant stuff. Let's just say we don't want to have to distinguish between transiting to natal aspects and transiting to transiting. Let's say for our purposes, for any given reason, that becomes irrelevant. We'll close out of here, get into transits again, simply load up, test for demo, and well, let's see. We need to adjust the transits. We want to take transiting to transiting out. Okay, and we want to see, I just want to see this for a year. And while this generates, we're going to talk in the next section about viewing transit and progression results. So now that we have some transit results, they come up like this. They come up in the form of a list. And one of the first things that you'll want to do when dealing with this list is change the list to a graph. That gives you the visual, and that makes everything just so much easier to read. Then now we're going to get into just viewing this, how your different options, how to work with this data here are. Now, the first thing you'll notice is you have a date slider. And the date slider, let's go to, it's going to start to the current, or the start of the time that you selected in the transits dialog, and it's going to be able to go to the end. And any time in between, you're going to be able to see, let's say I want to go to my birthday, October 19th, and we'll see what transits are going to be active for me on my birthday this year. What kind of energies are going to be coloring my solar return and that sort of thing. Well, it's going to bring everything up to above this dotted line. And that is a function of the first option at the bottom, which is dateline mode. So right now we're sorting to top, and that brings everything that when we select a date, it brings everything active on that date up above this dotted line. If we turn it to range scan, I actually don't understand range scan. I'm just not going to speak above my knowledge level. You can turn it off and just deal with it, kind of, there's no goodness in off, because you can turn it on and not manipulate anything except the date slider itself. And that's golden, because some of the other options allow you to take this date, like October 19th, and generate a little preview chart for it. So that's sweet. This is going to show us arc directions, progressions. Oh, sorry, that's natal, arc directions, progressions, and transits. If anyone wants this wheel, hit me up on Radical Astrology on Facebook. I invented this wheel for quad wheel chart viewing in Zodiac 13, orientation. Cat, got to quit. I'm making a video. The people are not here to hear you meow. That is T.S. Butt Scritches, and he loves attention. So, okay. Where are we? Right. Dateline mode. So we've got sort to top. Now, sort to top's useful sometimes, but on is useful all the time. And then the next thing we have is the line interpretation. And so this goes to like if we do a date interpretation. Let's see. If we sort to top, we can do a date interpretation. If I click date interpretation, it gives me all the aspects that are active on that date and their interpretations. Now, Prometheus doesn't come with any interpretations hard coded in it, but you can create those configs within Prometheus if you want to just generate more like automated reports. Same with line interpretation. If I want to say, okay, arc directed ascendant opposite natal Pluto, well, what does that mean? Well, there's no interpretation here, but if there was, this would allow us to view it. And if you are the overachiever who's going to detail every possible aspect with a little note just to generate automated reports for your clients, then that is something that you can do in Capricorn Prometheus. Contains the functionality to write interpretations per aspect, per line. We can go to interpretation view and just view this whole list as a set of interpretations. So if you want to just jam that out, print it out, copy to the clipboard, you can do a lot of automated stuff. Prometheus is set up for that. I don't use it for that. I'm old school. I like to live and direct, no lip syncing. So then we have sort. We can sort, and the sort function is very useful, very, very useful. People are often surprised by how useful the sort function is when they start to use it. And one thing we're starting with, the default, is it's going to sort these aspects to the left by when they start. So we got a little gradient, a curve there that goes on. Let's see, turn it to on, and you can see as we go down, aspects begin later and later. When do they enter the chart? So we can sort by different criteria, like the type of aspect. So that's neat, because let's say I want to see all my Saturn stuff this year. These are my transits. Incredible Jupiter activity. I see transiting Jupiter is just bouncing all over my natal chart. And Saturn, yeah, some stronger Saturn stuff too. Yeah, powerful movements. So I can get a quick detail right here of all the Saturn activity, like vis-a-vis the Uranus activity. Not a lot. So, a lot of that, and this is a side note, but a lot of that, how Jupiter activity compares to Saturn, compares to Uranus, is a direct function of how fast they move. Jupiter is a fast mover, is just going to be making more transits, and Saturn moving slower. Neptune's doing a lot for how slowly Neptune moves relative to Uranus. We can see that. Yeah, I have some Pluto stuff going on. Pluto over my moon. And yeah, I can just break it down. Like, oh, there's all my North Node activity for the coming year, South Node activity, South Node, progress, Sun and Moon. And you can see that instead of all the progressions, we defined just that we were only going to plot Sun and Moon, right? That's important. So this is what we're looking at. If you went and you had too many progressions, you just miles of progressions, and it was interrupting your pattern recognition and your workflow, you just trim it down to what's relevant. You don't need all those progressions, Sun and Moon. Yeah. So I digress again and again. Cool. So we have the sort function, we have entering, type, aspect. Sorting by aspect is really helpful, not because I am usually interested in like what kinds of conjunctions, but just seeing like how much of each activity and like what, here's my transiting to natal conjunctions, and I can see that 4 out of 6 of them are nodal. One of them representing a nodal half return, and the other that aren't nodal are Pluto Moon and Jupiter, part of Fortune. So yeah, we don't need to go on and say a lot about that, but we can do it by point 1. And point 1 is the transiting point. So for every transiting point, we have data. Progressed Sun, arc-directed Sun, progressed. Okay, well that is a bit odd because we've got arc-directed Sun up with progressed Sun, and it's just not sorted clearly. But everything else is pretty differentiated here in the transiting point. So if I want to see all my arc-directed Uranus activity, and then just like that, if I want to see all of my point 2, the natal points, the points, let's say I want to see everything that affects my natal Uranus this year. Here it is. So major transits include transiting Saturn trine. Yeah, right away I can pick out the big stuff happening from the less important stuff, and I can see a lot of nodal activity, a lot of nodal contact, and some of it's going to be challenging, some of it's going to be supportive. But I can just get like in a moment, I can get like a quick glance, right? Because there have been some Uranus themes of just recently that I feel are going to grow in the coming year, and I can look at that very, very simply. So sort, very helpful, very useful. Chart 1, chart 2. Do I even know what that does? I don't see it, friends. I don't see the pattern, but I'm sure there is one. I'm sure we're doing sensible things. Seems to group them by transiting planet or arc-directed or progressed planet, and then all the rest is in order. So I see what's happening. So for South Node, it lists the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron. So everything in order, out to Eris and the nodes themselves. So irrespective of time, we have a precise way. So I could see here, if the Sun makes any contact with Saturn. I'm not sure if I'm running solar transits, but I could see if, So let's say I wanted to see contact with Saturn. I could do it like this, or I could do it point 2. Point 2, we could go down to Saturn. Great, not a lot happening with Saturn. Jupiter quintile natal Saturn, transiting Saturn, square natal Saturn. North node by quintile natal Saturn. Okay, well that's nice. All right, so these are the sort functions. Next we have print functions. At the bottom to the right we have print, and print just brings up your printer dialog and allows you to find a printer, or if you have a PDF printer installed, you can generate PDF files of that. Open as chart. Open as chart is going to take whatever date line you're on. Let's get to my birthday, 19th. Come on, say it's your birthday. Okay, here we are at the 19th. We can open as chart. Now what that does is you'll see at the side we have a dynamics. So this is the, and then I can view this in like a full scale chart with all the data. I could generate quad wheel charts. You know, and I really would. I'd have to generate quad wheel charts. I hardly use the quad wheel. I just recently created this this wheel. Honestly, let's see. Just for the sake of this preview, we don't have to worry about that. But let's say it was a tri wheel. You'd have a lot more chart options. You could open that as a lot more charts. A bi wheel likewise. But you can get a sense of the angles here, and there is a lot of information to be gleaned on the quick. Actually, right now as we speak, the south node is exactly conjunct my arc-directed ascendant. Precise. How nice. So, okay, very neat. So a lot of good information. The next thing we have is a preview. So we can open as a chart. I can open all these dates as charts. So let's say before I get into preview, I want to take it back. I want to say let's go to sort to top, and let's just go to a date that like September 24th, where transiting Saturn squares my natal Neptune. So if I want to see what that whole chart looks like, I have two options, and one of them is open as chart and the other is preview. Preview opens a little window here that I can manipulate, move around, keep, or give away. And open as chart will open September 24th, 2024 with all the information here. So it's going to open it as a quad wheel, just like the last one. So we have September 24th, sorry, just like we had October 19th. And that's how those two different options work when you're viewing transits. One of the things that I like about preview, is it allows you just to quickly move through this and see, you know, how are things changing. Here we go. Jupiter trining my natal sun, and oh, it's just barely starting. But it doesn't matter. My point is, I can see here, Sun is ruling my 7th house. Jupiter is ruling my 11th in a whole sign house system. And, you know, that's gonna be especially interesting. Like, let's say I have important Saturn transits. Transiting Saturn is doing a lot in my chart next year, and a lot of it is, you know, trying to natal Uranus, my chart ruler, and square to my midheaven. So also square to my IC in my first house, and I expect it to be a big Saturn year. Now, if I was looking at someone's chart I wasn't familiar with, and I said, "Oh, you got a powerful Saturn year coming up," right away I can say, here Saturn is ruling the 12th house. So, regardless of your transiting Saturn in your first, and, of course, Saturn in the natal chart in the 7th, these are the areas that are going to get hit by the transits. These, especially what Saturn's ruling in the natal chart, that's where the change is going to stick. That's where that's where the landing is going to stick, in the 12th house. So I would expect, because we have first where Saturn is, 7th where Saturn is natally, and I mean transiting, when I say Saturn is in my first, and then we have 12th where Saturn rules, it's going to set up I thou situations of a Saturnine nature in the coming year that change the way I approach my 12th house. I'm going to expect to have maybe put all that together, a little bit of interpersonal, a little spiritual themed interpersonal interaction, and at the same time, Saturn brings the practicality. Saturn brings the structure. So there may be relationships that are precipitated in this coming year that they challenge. It's a trine to Uranus and change. They challenge and change the way that I do things, but at the same time, it's easy to say that what's really going to be affected in the end is going to be 12th house matters. How I relate to the world, how I relate to the universe, how I relate to God as I understand that thing. And I would have to say that everything else the 12th house rules. Like it could be a confining year. 12th house rules being stuck in places. So one never knows. One never knows. It's not important to make predictions, but this is why we do what we do. We want to get a sense of where the wind is blowing, where the power is, how to tap into it, how to maximize our potential to the fullest. That's what most people want to use astrology for. And I think that's it for today's video. I think that we got the transits and progressions and arc minutes down. If you have questions, leave them in the comments section. As always, I want to hype the Radical Astrology community on Facebook. It's a joinable, like open invitation community. It's private. Then that just means you'll have to answer a few questions to prove you're not a robot. And if you want to come and hang with the siderealists and the constellationists and the 13 sign outcasts, yeah, do it. That's where that's where the magic happens. Actually, we're down with all forms of sidereal. Most of us happen to be constellational and like really star oriented. But yeah, Radical Astrology on Facebook. I'll leave a link in the description. So that's a great place to like if you wanted that quad wheel chart. If you don't have that in your Capricorn Prometheus, because I created that custom. If you want that, you could approach me on Radical Astrology and say, hey, can you share that? And the answer would be yes. So I can sort of see that happening, but I don't know who uses quad wheels. Unless you're generating arc directions, progressions, transits, and have a radix, you're not really doing that. But the ramble stops here, folks. I love you all. I thank you for your attention, and I hope you have a lot of fun with Prometheus. Long live Gavin Burns. Thank you, and bless your endeavors. And I love you all. Again, thanks and goodbye.